everyone, so for today's card I'm using this Cherry Blossom stamp. This one is from the Garden Silhouette stamp set by Stampin' Up. It was retired a few years ago, I think, so it's not available anymore, but any sort of silhouette style image would work, and preferably a rubber stamp. I find they work better with this technique than clear stamps do because the ink tends to pool too much on clear stamps. But all I'm doing is I'm taking my Tim Holtz Distress markers, and I started with the lightest, so I used spun sugar, and I colored in all the flowers, and then I'm going over some of the edges, just lightly dotting on a bit of the worn lipstick, which is a shade darker. And then I'm going in with Barn Door. It wouldn't be necessary to do like several colors on the flowers, but I just thought it would look kind of nice, and the flowers are big enough to kind of dab on a little bit extra color, but you want to just kind of dab it on a little bit because otherwise you're just going to overwhelm and completely cover the other two colors if you're not careful. And then I go on and do the leaves, which is just the peeled paint marker. But yeah, always work lightest to darkest, especially when you're using water-based markers, because they will pick up the previous color if you happen to touch them, and you don't want to end up staining your lighter colors. Not to mention, it's just easier that way, because especially the lighter colors, it's harder to see where you've put them. Whereas once you get to the darker colors, you can see exactly where they are. And there's no hurry when you do this. You can do it one of two ways. You can color it and then you can huff on it, like re-moisten the ink with your breath. But I was kind of going for a more kind of watercolor look for this one. So what I did was I just took a little misting bottle with a tiny bit of water and very lightly misted the stamp. Like I only misted it about 3 times, and then you can see the ink kind of pools up a little bit and blends together. And then made sure my work surface was dry again so that I didn't get the paper all wet. And then I'm just stamping the stamp right onto the cardstock, just like so. So sometimes it takes a little while to fiddle with it because if you over mist it, everything can get really blurry. You'll see that in a second, because I decided to do it again for the inside. Because usually you can't re-stamp, like sometimes you can stamp off your stamp several times. But with this one, after you mist it with water, usually you can only get one good image. And then this time I kind of over misted it a little bit, but I went with it anyway. And then I'm just stamping it on the inside of the card, and you'll kind of see better later how it's more blurry and I've kind of lost a lot of the fine detail, but it still looks pretty. So just kind of a fun, easy, really quick technique. So did that. And then for my card front, I'm using some aqua cardstock, and then I took a piece of brown cardstock and ran it through my Big Shot with the Spellbinders Bricks and Bark embossing folder to give it the bark texture. So I really like this embossing folder. If anyone's interested, I could probably do like a little product review video on it, because this was the first time I used it and I really like it. And then for the sentiments, I'm using my Be Happy sentiment set, and then inking that up, of course, with VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And I've just got some Stampin' Up! Kiwi Kiss, I think this is, cardstock. As always, I still love my VersaFine for sentiments, but one thing you have to watch, when you stamp it on colored cardstock, it's harder. It takes longer for the ink to dry on it, which is just funny. But when you stamp it on white or patterned papers, it dries almost instantly. So you just have to be careful with smearing and whatnot. And then for the bark piece, I added more adhesive than I usually do, because when there's such heavy texture, it's a little bit harder to get things adhered down properly. So I just added a little bit of extra ATG adhesive to it and got it down no problem. And then, as always, my kind of go-to AmyRs ribbon. This has just been sitting on my desk the past couple weeks, and I swear I'm using it on every single card. I just can't help myself. It goes with everything. So wrap the ribbon around the card front, and then cut a separate piece as always, and tied it in a bow. Trimmed off the ends, and then I kind of dithered for a minute. I was tempted to put the main image up on dimensionals and pop it up a bit, but I had it in my head to use this little black strip of cardstock, and I wanted everything kind of flat to the cards, so I decided against that and just decided to adhere the main image flat to the card, and then that way I could adhere the little black strip of cardstock as well. And also, if you guys go to my blog post, I'll have it linked as always right below this video. This whole card was kind of inspired by a teacup I bought for a friend. This whole card is for her birthday, and the teacup I got for had cherry blossoms on it, so I was kind of following along with that theme to kind of make the card to match. So the sentiment was punched out with a 1 3/8 inch circle punch, and then I just used one of my largest circle dimensionals to pop that up just perfectly. And then I had my Doodlebug little pearls sitting on my desk, so I grabbed the beetle black ones and put 3 on the card front, just going from large to medium to small, just along the edge. And I always use my detail scissors to kind of peel these off. They're all self-adhesive, and it's just easier that way to kind of pick them up with the scissors and put them into place. And that's it. So once the card front was done, as always, adhesive again, and then adhering that to the card base, which as always is my standard A2 size, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. So got that adhered, and then I go on to finishing the inside of the card, which as you can see, I've got that cherry blossom stamped again, and then I cut, or I'm going to stamp the sentiment first, again on just the Kiwi Kiss cardstock. Another sentiment from the same set, inked it up with the VersaFine, stamped on the cardstock. I had checked before I started this card to make sure they both fit in the circle punch, which they did, which just made things easier and just nicer for consistency. So once I got that punched out, I cut a couple strips of the aqua cardstock and then the black cardstock, keeping them just so that it's more simple and then a place to write something. So I adhered that to the side of the card, and then I adhered the little black strip just over top of it. And then I don't know how I managed it, but I must have had some ink on my fingers and got 2 tiny little ink smears on the inside of the card, which were bugging me. You can barely see them, but that determined exactly where I was going to put the sentiment because it covers it up perfectly. So as always, there'll be a link below to my blog post with pictures and then links to all the supplies used. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!